How's everybody doing today? Good. Nothing like a little rain outside to remind us it's April in Utah, right? It's supposed to get nice again this weekend, so no worries. So Jan, your professor, I've gotten to know her a little bit this term. She and I have talked a little bit when I've been up trying to get something to eat in the break room, coming from running the business to teaching one of my classes, and it's been good to get to know her a little bit. And she had asked me about what I do in terms of my full-time job or during the day. And so we talked a little bit about my business. And she asked me if I'd be willing to come and speak. She'd asked me how I felt about coming and speaking to your class today, and I thought, I think it's a good fit. I've had my business now for 10 years and definitely would fall into the category of what the Department of Commerce classifies as a small business. How many of you know, in terms of employees, what a small business would be defined by the Department of Commerce? 100 or less, yeah. So it's pretty broad. So anyway, yes, I'm definitely a small business in that regard. So a little bit about myself. Jen gave you a little bit of background as far as my educational path, I guess you could say. A couple of years ago, I just answered an ad that Salt Lake Community College had in terms of adjunct teaching opportunities, and you know, I met with Barbie, who's the associate of the marketing and management, right? Anyway, so felt like I had a solid background and experience to teach here part-time, and so been doing this, been teaching for a couple of years. I've really enjoyed it. To be honest with you, I don't teach because of the money. I teach because I enjoy sharing my experience and knowledge with the students. I think honestly it brings an additional sort of relevancy to the material in the classes I teach when we can talk about something in a book that's theory-based and we can actually apply it to how I've dealt with it in my own business in the real world. So obviously not everything that falls along business can apply to my business, but there are certain principles and aspects of business that are unilateral for any business. So let's see, I started in my industry, which is a very niche. I'm not French, so I'm not going to say niche. It's a very niche business. I was going to bring in a flyer for my business and I didn't, because it's probably easier to read that and look at it than, anyway, and they're very colorful, they're pleasing to the eye. But I sell frozen juice concentrates in bulk form, wholesale. So I'm a wholesale distributor. So you may be saying, well, what is that? That would be a good question. What is that? So my big three customers that I focus on are, or target customers, as we like to say in marketing, would be assisted living retirement facilities, restaurants, and hotels. Now, why do you think hotels would be a good target customer for me?
They'll have their free breakfast.
That's right. Yeah, and what do they serve a lot of with a free breakfast?
Tiny cups of juice.
Tiny cups, that's right. Yeah, you keep refilling those 4 or 6 ounce glasses, that's fine. Just keep refilling them. Yeah, so hotels are definitely, percentage-wise, my hotel business is about, I'd say 30% of my business. Retirement properties are probably 50, and then 20% would be restaurants. So yeah, hotels are definitely a chunk of my business in terms of annual sales. So the product that I distribute and sell is manufactured in Southern California. Now, how did I get into this? I get asked that a lot. How did you get, because it's such a unique kind of a niche business. So 15 years ago, I answered a little tiny 3-line ad. It was really sketchy, to be honest with you. The ad, I thought, this can't be a real thing, you know. But I called the number, and they said, yeah, we've got a new territory that we're opening up in Utah, and we need someone to go in and really build this territory from the ground up. And I thought, I was in a position, the company I was working for was, the division I was in, they were downsizing and eliminating the division corporate-wide, and I thought, I think some things are going to be changing. I probably need to be a little proactive here. So I answered the ad, and I went and interviewed, and at first, later they told me they weren't going to hire me because I didn't have really any sort of a traditional service background. And that is part of my business because you provide the little countertop juice dispensing machines that you see at a hotel. You put your cup and you fill it up. So with those machines come a certain amount of service. And I didn't really have that. But anyway, they liked what I had in terms of sales experience. And so they went ahead and hired me as what you could say is a manufacturer's rep to build this territory. Now that was in 2001. So I came in and I worked really hard for 5 years and built this territory up to where it was a viable operation for the company. Well, so things change. Things always change in business. They always change in life. There's always change. So after 5 years, I approached the company and said, hey, how would you guys like or feel about me becoming a distributor for you here in Utah, and you can focus on just supplying me as the manufacturer? And the timing was good. Now in business, timing is a lot of what happens in business. It just is. Anyway, the timing was good for them, and the reason it was good for them is because they were looking to expand into Northern California. Now, obviously we know how big California is. It's a huge state. So not only do they manufacture the product, they also maintain their own customer base and do direct distribution for, at that time, Southern California. So they were wanting to move into Northern California. So the timing was good because I would have to buy them out here. Now, buy them out. What would I have to buy? Inventory. Thousands of dollars of inventory. What is inventory? I tell my students, what is inventory? It's an asset, yeah. It's dollar bills, right? Sitting on the shelf. Or in my case, sitting in a locker somewhere. That's all it is. Until you can move it, sell it, turn it into money, it's an asset that is not very liquid. Okay, so inventory was a big part of the purchase. The other big part was the equipment. So they had all these machines. Well, these machines new sell for between $4,000 and $5,000, which it's a lot for just a little. It's not a very big machine, but they're a pretty complicated piece of equipment. There's a lot that goes into them. So anyway, that between and then I had to purchase a truck, which I'm still driving. We'll talk about that a little bit later in terms of managing your debt. So I had to purchase a truck, new at the time, well, almost new. I don't ever buy new vehicles, and we can talk about that too if you have any questions as to why I don't. The truck was a year old and had 2,000 miles on it, so it was essentially new. So I had to buy the truck, had to buy all the inventory, had to buy the parts, had to take over the lease for the warehouse and the cold storage facility, and then inventory and equipment. So it ended up being an investment of about $70,000, and I had 30 days to put it together. Because I said, look, we like this idea. We like the idea of you forming your own company and you taking over everything that has to do with the Utah territory. We will simply supply the product to you. We'll establish our margin. We'll supply it to you, and we don't have any headaches. That way, we can take the money that is going to be required in terms of inventory, parts, and machines, and we can reinvest that into our expansion into Northern California. So that's where the timing was good for them. I think if the timing had been different, it probably wouldn't have happened. I think they would have said, no, we're okay. But they were in a position where they needed some cash to help with their expansion. Now, granted, it wasn't a lot of cash. It wasn't $500,000, but, 60, 50, take the truck out of the equation, $50,000. It's could buy a lot of used equipment. And this company in California, they only buy their machines used. They have a huge service department, so they buy these machines for, 10 or 20 cents on the dollar, and they'll go through and completely refurbish them It's a lot easier to make back your investment when you're paying 20% of retail for a piece of equipment. So that's what kind of facility. So in June 1st of '06 is when I took over officially with my own company. So I had 30 days to get my funding together. Now, how do you do that in 30 days? Do you think a bank would give me a loan for $70,000? Friends and family, it certainly is one. But go ahead, tell me your name.
Same thing, small business, maybe you did like a HELOC or something.
Bake sale?
How quickly do you think the SBA moves? And I've used the SBA twice, so I'm familiar with them.
Visa, MasterCard, and Discover.
Possible, I didn't have that much credit. What else?
Like refinancing your house or leveraging whatever assets you have.
Right there, yes, good. So I was fortunate enough that I had a home. My wife and I had our home, and we had enough equity in the home that I could take out a line of credit against the home. The thing that I was fighting at the time was time. They said, we need to know if this is going to work or not, because we need to know how we want to pursue things. So there are lots of ways that you can get funding, right? Credit cards are certainly one. Friends and family, the bank, the SBA organization, a mortgage on your home, angel investors, venture capitalists. I mean, it just depends. What you have to keep in mind is when you're asking someone for money, they want to make sure they get it back. And they want it to be low risk. So, the bank had to do their due diligence and say, okay, you have X amount of equity in your home. We're going to take your home as collateral for this loan until you get us paid back. So we're okay with it. So it worked out. Timing worked out. Here again, in business, timing can be really important. So for the last 10 years, I've been running and building my business based on starting the territory from scratch. So was it a new idea for me? No, not really. It wasn't really a new idea. It's not like I came up with an idea and said, wow, this is a great product, and I can turn it into a business and make money off of it. Do ideas make money? Not unless you have a plan, right? Some sort of a business plan. Need a business plan. Ideas are great, but they don't generate money in terms of a business. So just keep that in mind.
So did they have any customers that you took over?
The customer base that was here, good question, was what I had built up on my own for the last 5 years. So essentially, to the customers that were here, I was the company, because the company was based in Southern California, and I was kind of their contact. I was their point of contact for service, for sales, for inventory, whatever the case may be. So in that regard, it was a pretty easy, smooth transition for the customer base. I remember I sent out letters to all of them and just explained what was happening. And I had a handful of customers that own their own business, small business owners, restaurants, primarily, that said, hey, we'd prefer working with a small business, directly. So they were good with it. They liked the idea and so forth. So, but it was a little bit unnerving because, maybe unnerving is not the right word, but there's a little bit of trepidation because when you work for somebody, they provide the salary and the security and the benefits, and you just get your paycheck and put your time in and away you go. Well, when you own your own business, who's responsible for everything? Yeah, you. Is that a good thing?
Yes and no.
Can be a great thing. Can have its downsides too. Yeah. Tell me your name.
Bryce,
Bryce. What are some downsides?
you're responsible for everything.
Okay.
If it fails, it's good because you have freedom, you're your own boss, but it's bad because if you don't make the money, you don't have anyone else to blame. If something, like there's an extenuating circumstance in your family, like a medical bill, it can affect your business because maybe you don't have enough money to pay expenses, so just liability.
Yeah. Yeah. It really does fall all on you. But that can be a great motivator too. So, how many of you know the number one reason that people take out personal bankruptcy? Do I need to stay here in the middle? Can I wander? I tend to wander when I teach, so I feel like I'm, yeah. How many of you know? Do you know?
Credit card debt.
Medical, yeah. Which a lot of times, Bryce, right, is funded by credit card because they just don't have the money to pay that debt down. So yeah, medical. So when you're a small business owner, is medical a big expense? It can be a huge expense. Yeah, fortunately my wife's a school teacher, and so we've been able to use her insurance in that regard. The insurance used to be great. It certainly isn't what it used to be with the school system she's in. But companies in general are struggling with that. It's a huge expense for all companies. So the school districts are not alone. They're still run like a business, or at least they should be. So yeah, medical debt is a big one. Okay, so let's see. So how did I grow my business? And it was 10 years ago, it was, in terms of annual sales, I'd say, it was okay. It was like probably $200,000 a year, which you think, well, that's great. But when you start factoring your costs out of that, you know, 200,000 disappears pretty quick. So it's grown to the point now that it's between, I'll just generalize, between $500,000 and $1 million in sales. Now the reason, I'd say the number one reason for that growth, 2 words. What are they?
Customer service.
I'm sorry?
Customer service.
That's a big part of it. That kind of goes hand in glove with the other 2 words. Hard work. Yeah. Do you think, if you have your own business, do you think people are going to just give you business? No, they're sure not. Do you think there's competition out there? Lot. Do you know who my competition is? I've got some big sharks I'm swimming with. Coke indirectly. You know why Coke?
Beverages.
They own Minute Maid. Minute Maid has a juice line. A lot of people don't know that. CocaCola owns Minute Maid. They've owned them for years. Minute Maid has a frozen juice line. Not just what you get off the fountain drink, the soda machines, but they have actually frozen juice with the machines. So they are, I would say they're more of a indirect competitor, but they're out there. Coke. Who?
Jamba Juice.
No, they're not really a competitor. I'm talking distributors. Cisco. Cisco's the big gorilla in the room in my field. Yeah, for sure. And you know what? I love taking business from Cisco because they're really not taking care of their customers the way they should because they are so big.
Well, yeah, you can offer something that they can.
Yeah. Which is what?
Customer service.
Customer service.
Because they've been dealing with you since before you even owned the company.
Yeah. Well,
They established a rapport.
yeah, and at some point in a business, selling becomes relationship selling, right? Customers, I mean, people buy from people they like and they trust. So if you can establish a relationship with your customers, that you're knowledgeable and you're trustworthy and you're likable, and I don't mean likable like a politician where you tell people what they want to hear. I mean a genuinely likable person. People will buy from you. They'll want to do business with you. Now, does that mean the competition's not going to take business from you from time to time? No, that's going to happen. And you know what? Competition in a free market system like we have here in the US of A is critical. Competition is, I like it personally. I think it's great because the competition, when they're not doing their job, just creates opportunities for me. And hopefully I'm doing my job so the competition does not have a lot in the way of opportunities. Now, I have lost business over the years to the competition. I can honestly say it has not been, at least I'm not aware of any account I've lost that it's been due to something we have not done as a company. It has been through corporate mandated decisions. In other words, we are mandating that you use this particular vendor for your juice program, or a new GM comes in or a new dietary manager comes in and they switch because why? Why do you think they switch? Yeah, they know somebody somewhere else and they have no relationship with you. They probably have one with the person they want to use, and so they want to bring them in. And that happens with me too, for sure. So The point being that competition's out there, competition's healthy, and it's critical in our particular free market system. At least I believe it is. If you don't have competition, then you run into all kinds of problems with monopolies and issues that happen when you don't have a healthy competitive environment for business. So yeah, hard work for sure is what's allowed me to grow my business to where it's at. I told Jen, I guess okay if I call you Jen, okay. Professor seems kind of formal. Anyway, I told her on the back of my truck, I've got a tagline on my tailgate that says, capturing market share through exceptional quality and customer service. And the reason I put that on there is because I believe it 100%. And if I didn't believe that, it'd be hard for me to go out and get business. I mean, it just would be. So you have to believe in the product and or service that you are offering your customers. If you don't believe in it, they're probably going to sense it. They're probably going to know it. So it's really important that you find something you believe in. Now, what kind of, and to go along with that, what helped me in terms of wanting to transition into owning my own business was I truly believed in the quality of the product, and I still do. I think it's the best frozen juice out there on the market. You know, it doesn't have the same name that Minute Maid has or Florida's Natural. It's called Millennium, but the manufacturer's been around for 40-something years. They're very good at what they do, and I believe 100% in the quality of their product. And if I didn't believe in it, it'd be hard for me to go out and sell it and be committed to it. So yeah, make sure that you believe in what it is you're representing or selling or creating or the service you're providing. So yeah, hard work is probably the number one thing. Great customer service. Well, what does that mean? Companies talk a lot about customer service. The tire hits the pavement when the customer actually needs customer service. So that means for me, sometimes weekend work, sometimes evening work. One thing we've always done is we put the product away for the customer in their freezer. We don't just drop the cases off and leave it. We actually go a step further physically, if they want us to. Some are okay to just have us drop it, but we leave that up to the customer. If they want us to, we'll physically take the bottles, there's 3 bottles to a case, take them out of the cases, put them on the shelf. Well, what does that do? It's not a big deal, but in terms of business, that helps us, a great marketing word here, differentiate ourselves from the competition. The competitors, I will guarantee you, are not doing that because they're big enough companies that they have a guy that's been hired to deliver the product, and what does he want to do? Yeah, he wants to get through, he stops as quick as he can. So, and that's just the nature of the beast when you develop and grow, you know, into a major corporation, which I am not, of course. So, yeah, Cisco, US Foods, both of those companies are international distributors. I think of Cisco as the Walmart of the food distribution world because they really are that big. And then the other kind of regional one would be Nicholas. They cover the Intermountain area. I know they just opened a new distribution center in Las Vegas, I believe, 2 years ago. So they're growing. They pretty much cover the West or just the Intermountain areas, their focus. Like I said, they'd be considered a regional distributor. Was why I've decided to, I wouldn't say cap, but why I've really tried to limit my growth. Growth is a great thing, but with growth comes challenges and additional expenses. And a company, you have to manage your growth because if you don't, it will manage you for sure. So growth is not necessarily a bad thing. You always want to be headed in that direction, but I've chosen with my company to manage that more, I guess more so than maybe some other companies have. And it's because, for me personally, if you get too big, you tend to lose focus on your customers and the customer service and your product. And all of those things that I believe has helped me build a successful business over the years. So does that kind of answer your question? Okay. And every business owner has their own reasons. Some want to hit the gates running and grow like crazy and sell their business. There are all kinds of business owners that are motivated by different reasons for having a business. We talk about it in my Small Business Management 1100 class and the different types of entrepreneurs there are. So anyway, so let's talk about just a couple things here. So the first one I wrote down, I had a minute yesterday and I thought, what do I want to talk about? There's a lot I could talk about. Well, the first one I guess would be to manage your debt. Why is that? Now you're shaking your head. Why is that important?
Well, you gotta control your financial situation. You don't want to build up too many debts, and you won't be able to run your business.
Yeah, if you don't manage your debt, you're going to have cash flow issues. Now, I believe the number one reason, not the only reason, but I believe the number one reason companies fail, cash flow. When the housing crunch came in 2008, many companies shut down because their cash flow was really struggling. They tried to go to banks and get unsecured lines of credit or short-term loans, and what were the banks saying? No, we've created this mess, but now we're going to tighten up on it. So companies that needed cash to help with cash flow in terms of payroll and utilities and rent and all those fixed costs that come to a business, whether you're making money or not, they still are going to expect to be paid every month. They were struggling to make those payments. Well, cash flow, or the lack thereof, can only go so far before a business says, we can't do it, got to shut down. Okay? So manage your debt. That will serve you well. How many of you own your own business? Nobody? Anybody? Jen? Good, okay. The reason I ask is, in my small business management class, there's a few students I've taught it 2 terms now, there's a few students that every year that have their own business. One of them this term, his family actually owns Condi's Food. You've heard of that. They've been around quite a large company. He's definitely shared some interesting stories in terms of how their business has grown and what their plans are for the future. So anyway, yeah, manage your debt for sure. Let's see here. You got to unfold it. Take care of your credit. Okay, I just went through the process of financing a warehouse purchase, moving into a bigger warehouse, which is a good thing. Now, when I went to the credit union, I used Golden West Commercial Lending Department to help me fund this loan. What do you think Golden West wanted to do? That was definitely a part of it, yeah. And they checked everything. They scrutinized my books, they scrutinized my taxes, yeah, because they want to make sure that they get their money back, that I'm a low-risk customer to them. So they checked everything. They checked my balance sheets, my income statements, my receivables, my payables, sales, debt-to-income ratio, just all kinds. Then they checked my taxes for 3 years. Well, it turns out, hey, you're a low enough risk, we're going to go ahead and give you the money. But I have excellent credit. I've worked very hard to take good care of my credit over the years. And the loan officer said, now this is not the only factor we use in determining a loan, but we certainly look heavily at your credit, because credit doesn't determine, but it shows a pattern. So try and do the best you can to take care of your credit. It will serve you well as you go down the road of owning your own business, because you never know when you're going to have to draw on it in terms of funding. Okay? Number 3, make calculated risks. Do you think that's important for a business? Do you think business owners are risk takers? Yeah, for sure. Okay, the difference is there's risk and there's calculated risk. Okay, now expanding into a bigger warehouse is risky for me. Why is it risky? I'm sorry? Well, debt's the biggest challenge. I'm taking on additional debt. But for me, it's a calculated risk. I understand, at least I feel like I understand, what my sales are going to be in terms of the growth of the business. And I feel like that I need this warehouse to help me function and operate my business, or help me function more efficiently and operate my business more effectively. So don't be afraid to take risks, but calculate them. Mitigate them or lessen them as much as you can. Well, the way you do that is you understand the risks and you calculate the reward versus the risk. Okay? Number 4. Surround yourself with good people. Now, I will tell you, a smart entrepreneur will know and understand what their strengths and weaknesses are. And an even smarter one will say, wow, I'm not really good at sales, but I understand how important they are, and I need to have some people that are good at sales because I'm not. Or I can't stand accounting, but it's really important to my business, so I need to make sure that I have a good accountant that can help me run my business. Make sure you know accounting, make sure you have a good accountant if you don't know accounting, one that you can trust, for sure. It's critical. Okay, let's see here. Number 5, we talked about already, work hard. That's pretty much a tenet, I think, of owning your own business. If you want it to grow and be successful, you need to be prepared to spend the time working on it, because there's nobody that's going to be pushing you along or motivating you to go out and get business and take care of your company and help it grow. It's all on your shoulders. All right. Believe in what you have to offer. We talked a little bit about that and why that's important. And we talked about managing your growth. Growth is a good thing, but you have to manage it. A lot of companies grow too quick, too fast, and then they start to develop major cash flow issues. Okay. Probably the last one would be to know your numbers. So why is that important? It's pretty obvious, but why is it important? Calculated decisions, right? Yeah, you've got to know your numbers. If you're not good with them, hire someone that can help you. Work with someone that can help you do that understands them. Accounting's a big part of numbers. Some people are really good at finance numbers. Some people aren't. That's okay. You just find people that you can surround yourself with that will help you grow and be successful. If you don't know your numbers, you could sell $10 million. You could have $10 million in annual sales, but if your profit margin is not where it needs to be, you could be broke at the end of the year. And by broke, I mean zero. You've paid all your costs and you have no profit. Zero profit, because in terms of numbers, your gross margin or your profit margin is slim enough that you're not making profit. So that's one kind of simple example of why it's important to know your numbers when you have your own business. And there's lots of numbers that go into a business. The bigger a business is, the more numbers it has. The more it grows, the more numbers it has. So anyway, is that enough nuggets?
Those were great nuggets.
Great nuggets, okay. Good question. I've always had kind of an independent personality. I've always liked the idea of being my own boss. And like I mentioned, I'd been running the territory pretty much on my own. They'd send someone up from California every couple of months to work with me for a few days, and then they'd go away, and then it was pretty much up to me. So, and prior to that, I'd worked as a sales rep, and there's, of course, a lot of freedom when you're a sales rep, too. So, yeah, I just like the idea of being my own boss more than anything else, making my own schedule and not having somebody tell me what to do. And honestly, that's one of the main reasons that people start their own businesses. It's not the only reason, but it's certainly a reason that someone says, hey, I'm tired of working for someone else. I can do it better, and I want to start my own business to do it. You had a question?
Yeah, so what, do you go after the big hotel chains, or did you stay with like bed and breakfast for? How did you decide what areas to, who to target?
Yeah, good question. There's a lot of hotels around. I don't work with any bed and breakfast accounts. Some of the hotels I work with are, Spring Hill Suites and Residence Inns and Fairfield Inns. I do a lot of Marriott properties. And they can be a little bit tricky because Marriott has preferred vendors that they like their properties to use. That's kind of a challenge for me because I'm smaller. I don't have the national coverage that Cisco and US Foods would have. But over the years, as I've built relationships with GMs, they've been willing to work with me at their property and just deal with the audit when it comes around a couple times a year and say, yeah, this is our vendor. This is who we want to use. And I've had GMs tell me that they're dinged a little bit on their their evaluation from corporate, because they'll send someone out to go through and do a checklist on their property once or twice a year, and they can get dinged on their evaluation, but the ones I work with, I guess, yeah.
So do you cover all of Utah?
Technically, I have the distribution rights to the entire state, yeah. But I really only cover the WASP from Ogden to Provo. There's enough business along the corridor that it keeps me busy. I don't go up to Brigham or Logan. There's business up there, but it's just too far away. It doesn't make sense to drive that far. So, Bryce, right?
Yeah.
Then
Do you see yourself sticking with what you have now, or do you eventually see yourself continuing to grow and maybe hiring more people to help you run it?
That's a good question. My oldest son is really wanting to take a more involved role in the company. And if that happens, he would just eventually buy me out. I certainly would not give him the business. He's going to have to earn it. So he would buy me out, and then I would maybe stay on for a period of time as like a paid consultant to help him transition or whatever. We'd work that out. And at that point, he may decide, it would be his decision, hey, what do I want to do with this business? Is it good where it's at? Do I want it to grow more? So forth and so on. And those are all decisions that business owners have to make all the time. Just selling your business can be a little bit tricky. How do you value it? Who do you find that's a good potential customer, a good potential owner for the business? Can they get the funding or financing to buy the business? You can use a business broker for things like that. It's helpful, but yeah, does that answer your question? Okay, good. You had a question?
Yeah, how many employees? Is it currently just you, or?
I've got myself and 5 employees. So, yeah, it started out just me. Go ahead.
Biggest expense?
Every month is my inventory, by far. Yeah. It's a major expense. So, but my margins for the year are about 44%, which is good. You have to be careful of price yourself out of the market. Anyway, I'm competitive with my pricing. So, but when you manage your debt, your margins may not have to be quite as high as they would otherwise. Okay, you had a question?
Well, yes, you said you just covered the valleys. One of students offered to help you with it, like Logan, Ogden, Provo. Would you consider that offer?
I go to Provo. I cover Provo to Ogden. Logan, the problem with Logan is it's just far enough away, and you've got to drive that canyon, Sardine Canyon, in the wintertime, and to me, it's just not worth the risk. There's just not enough business up there. Logan has grown, and maybe I need to go up there and pursue a little more business that way, but the last time I was up there were a few hotels, but there weren't a lot. There's probably a few retirement places up there too, and some restaurants, but for me, there's enough business between Ogden and Provo and this area is growing all the time. They stayed pretty much the same. What I do annually is I review my pricing and determine, hey, do I need to increase prices a little bit here, a little bit there? You have to remember that your profit margin or your gross margin isn't just covering the difference between what you pay and what you pay and what you sell it for. You have to factor in all your costs of running your business. So if you have an expense one year, you have to buy in my case, say you add another truck, or you have to buy a bigger freezer for your product, or a forklift, whatever. You have to look at those kind of costs and say, okay, am I good, or do I need to adjust my pricing a little bit to help offset that? Like I said, you have to be careful because you can price yourself out of the market. No matter how good you are, how great your product is, at some point, the customer is going to say, I can't afford you. So that's where you have to know your numbers. So initially, it pretty much stayed the same. I wanted the transition to be smooth and just to move right along. So, good. Yes?
Being a distributor, are you ever worried about the company that you
That's a good question. The company I buy my product from has been around for a long time, like 40-something years. The original owners, they're two partners, sold the business to 4 investors. And they, I believe all 4 of them had been working for the company for years. One of them was the son of one of the owners. And at least the other 2 I know had spent years working for the company, and they finally were offered an opportunity to buy 25% of the company. So I don't foresee, I actually asked them that question, hey, if you were approached by a bigger distributor, to buy you out, is that something you'd consider? And they said no. They said, we have no desire to do that. And they were pretty direct in their response to me. And so I think that, is a potential risk down the road. But I think at this point, it's minor. I will tell you that I have looked into, not real seriously, but I have looked into co-packers here in Salt Lake in terms of, what's available here in the valley. So, yeah, something to think about for sure.